Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Boston series, 18 parishes in the southeastern corner of Lincolnshire with a windmill and vegetable type theme. Let's get cracking and see one. Welcome back to Boston again, people. It's time for parish number 5. Now, every single one we've covered so far out here has involved a lot of driving. Well, this one doesn't, thankfully. This is much more of a nucleated village. There's not really much in the way of little tiny settlements that are around it in this one, which is a really good thing for me because it means I'll just have to walk around it, come back to the car and then move on to the next one. This one's name is Butterwick. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Butterwick, Butter Farm. Alright folks, the last of this current run out here in Boston sees us take on the village of Butterwick, the first so far we've covered that's not on the A52, well, at least not directly. Butterwick sits just to the south of that major road, partway between Benington to the northeast and Frieston to the southwest. With a layout that's much more nucleated than anything so far seen down here, and with a large population, Butterwick is considered to be a commuter village and has less to do with the fenlands than what we're used to. That said, there are still arable fields in Butterwick, and we will be passing through one of them on foot, where we'll get a look firsthand at the vegetables grown by Benington's T.H. Clement. In terms of the food industry, Butterwick has always been associated with it. The name is a big clue for a start. Butterwick means butter farm. However, these days it has a rather different connection. North of the village is a huge factory which isn't processing veg or butter. It's a hatchery which has been in the news for all the wrong reasons just lately. I do advise discretion when watching this episode because some viewers may find the first section after the demographics upsetting. Once beyond that, we've got a church, a pub, a mill and 2 schools to talk about. Let's go, folks. For those of a nervous and sensitive disposition, I advise skipping this first section. Butterwick's biggest industrial unit can be found north of the main village. This is Annyalla Chicks and it's a hatchery. Although I could have filmed this in the usual way, the factory has been in the press for all the wrong reasons and I didn't want to be mistaken for a news reporter. Annyalla Chicks produces 3 million one-day-old chicks for the broiler industry each week and was awarded Hatchery of the Year at the National Egg and Poultry Awards in 2022. Quite how that award was given is anyone's guess. The chicks, which are hatched within its walls, aren't welcomed by a protective mother. Instead, they live a short life of suffering and potentially meet their end in a horrific way. The Animal Justice Project, or AJP for short, produced some undercover video footage of Annyalla's production line over several days last year. Whilst the footage shows some clear mishandling of the birds, it thankfully didn't show the grimmest part. The AJP was shocked and disgusted with the inhumane method used to dispose of chicks that are deemed unsuitable for the meat market upon hatching. These are usually ones that are sick or injured, and they're swiftly shredded in a bladed machine called a macerator. Let me tell you, even just writing that line made me feel sick. According to RSPCA standards, the method is a legal and accepted means of killing chicks, and Annyalla did confirm that they use it. If you want to watch the undercover footage from the AJP, the link is below. Things like this must surely make you consider turning vegan. On a much more pleasant note, Butterwick used to have another food industry connection. Close to Annyalla is the former Butterwick Mill. 4 stories tall and built in 1871, it used to be powered by 4 sails. It has since lost those and its cap, but it remains Grade 2 listed. Butterwick Mill ceased working in the 1920s. Our main route begins on Brand End Road. Brand End is a small hamlet between Butterwick and Haltoft End on the A52. It's mainly housing here, and the same can be said for the estate which this road borders the northern fringes of. This first section is literally just a modern housing estate constructed in the late 20th century and early 21st. This accounts for a lot of Butterwick's population. Despite not being on the A52 directly, the village is close enough to it to attract commuters who work in Boston. As such, there's not a lot in the way of landmarks here, so we'll head straight through this to School Lane. On School Lane we have the second oldest building in Butterwick. That's the old brewhouse, Grade 2 listed and originating from the 17th century. Next to it though is more modernity. These flats are called the Evergreens, and once again it's another block managed by the Lincolnshire Housing Partnership. You can catch a bus outside these. Butterwick is served by the B7 between Boston and Skegness, as well as the 57 Interconnect, which follows a similar route. Behind the stop was some sort of pumping station managed by Anglian Water. I have to admit, this first part of Butterwick was a bit bland. Well, so far not a lot for us to get our teeth into, but that's soon about to change, because at the end of this road there's the playing field and there's a school as well, and we'll be picking up a path very shortly that will take us back towards the church. So there are plenty of landmarks here in Butterwick, it's just a case of actually getting to them, which we haven't done yet. In 1665, Butterwick native Anthony Pinchbeck left 74 acres of land in his will to be rented to farmers. The funds were to be used to provide a grammar school for all the boys in the surrounding area. To this day, Pinchbeck's land still raises funds for the Trust, part of the modern school's governing body. Over the road is Butterwick Park. This is managed by a charity called the Park Green Project. Its main aim is to provide and support this open recreational area. It's quite a large open space too, this. It has a massive playground, a football pitch, and this curious mound which resembles an ancient tumulus. Now we're at another school building in the southernmost reaches of the village. This was Pinchbeck's old school, which was later adapted as an infant and girls' school when a new building was erected for the boys. Now boarded up, the old girls' school dates mainly from 1878 after being extended and altered. For a time after closure it became the village hall, and if you look closely you can still see clear evidence that Butterwick Playgroup once used this building too. It remains Grade 2 listed, as does the nearby Pinchbeck House. Next, we follow a footpath that crosses a field that's full of vegetables. These fields form part of the many owned and managed by T.H. Clement, the major growers we learned about in Benington. Obviously, we've every right to be here because we're on a right of way, so you get a great opportunity to inspect the goods before they hit the shelves, and they look magnificent. Ordnance survey maps from the 1920s show there used to be an agricultural tramway network running west from the village in a U-shape to Butterwick Grange. Such tramways often used narrow-gauge trench railway equipment from World War I to allow year-round access to these soft fenland fields. It's mainly residential for a while now, but there is an industrial estate nearby. This is Wharf Park, and within it is a company called Viper Marine. They mainly make and repair fiberglass boats. I expect we'll see more companies like this around Boston because it originated as a small fishing town. Of course, to fish, you need a boat. Wright's Autos are another business based at Wharf Park too. They repair cars instead, but their presence means that this is the place to come no matter what vehicle needs fixing. Now at this point the rain started to fall harder, making the next sight all the more surprising. So again, we're making our way through another area of housing here. It's a very quiet village, is Butterwick. Haven't seen anybody really walking around or driving around. I had this one guy run past me a few moments ago in the rain wearing shorts that look like they belong on a beach in Waikiki or something like that. Absolutely amazing. There's always one guy in shorts in this weather, and I found him here in Butterwick. Okay, so next job is to go towards the church, and somewhere along here there's a footpath off to the left. It takes us towards it. So to the church, a Grade 1 listed Anglican building dedicated to St Andrew, which contains an early English font and styled arcades. The church is open during the day for quiet reflection and is often used for a variety of other activities, including coffee mornings and a weekly bell ringing. It's also the base for the coastal community choir. Records from 1916 state that back then an ancient sycamore planted in 1653 once stood in the churchyard. Standing in the churchyard these days is a war memorial, a simple obelisk that bears the names of the 19 men from Butterwick who lost their lives in World War I. Next door is the village hall. This modern building, which looks a little blurry through the rain, took over from the old girls' school. I didn't find out a lot about this if I'm totally honest, but I'd imagine it operates in much the same way as your standard village hall does. On the wall is the parish notice board, so let's get Butterwick off the Boston list officially. 5 down and 13 to go in this expanse of Lincolnshire fenland. Moving on, we next come to a junction where Church Road, Sea Lane, Benington Road and Brand End Road all meet. Where they do is a small circular green. This is the Five Bells pub, whose name is a reference to the church's tower. It originally housed 5 bells, but these days there are 6 because an extra one was added in 1923. The 5 Bells was built as a railway hotel, but as you'll have gathered, there's no line here. The railway in question was never built, but if it had have been, it would have linked Boston to Wrangle, and Butterwick would have been on its route. Can you imagine how much these villages might have grown if the railway had sliced across the fens? I wonder too how it would have affected the farming. I guess we will never know. Lastly, we go up Old Post Office Lane back to Brand End Road. How this street gets its name is pretty obvious. The first post office in Butterwick was in a large house within a farmyard on Benington Road. Only the outbuildings of that remain today. It then moved to a cottage at number 9 Old Post Office Lane, which is now a private house, and eventually ended up here at the village shop next door to Butterwick Chippy. By the way, I have to tell you, the smell coming from the chippy was pretty good. I opted not to go in on this occasion, but if you ever find yourself in Butterwick, I highly recommend you do. Let me tell you something, folks, I'm glad that's the 5th and last one I'm doing in this run, because this weather is just not disappearing. It's just been raining all morning, and it's terrible because I'm absolutely soaking wet through. But at least I now can go back to my hotel, get a change of clothes and dry off, and yeah, hopefully it'll be better tomorrow. It was perhaps just my luck, but when I left Butterwick the rain stopped. It ended up being a really nice day after that. Hopefully the next time I come to Boston, the weather will play less of a part. We still have 13 to go down here, and we've yet to see some of the best stuff. Join me down here again soon for more Near the Wash. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.